Why father asked about you today. His voice was calm, but his eyes weren't. That's the thing about him, the king. He never raises his voice, but when he's angry, the silence grows sharp enough to slice through skin. He did say your name. He didn't have to. He just said that girl. Like you were a mistake carved into my history. Like you were something temporary, forgettable, a shadow he expected would fade if ignored long enough. But you didn't fade. You grew. In me. Around me. Through me. And today, for the first time, he said something. And I knew he's no longer pretending to tolerate what he cannot control. He's preparing to fight it. He asked if you were still around. I told him you were more than that, that you were part of my life now. He stared at me for a long moment, his hands folded neatly, his crown not on his head, but still very much in the room. He said, "You're a prince, act like one." I looked him in the eye and said, "I am. And just no longer acting like your version of one." And that's when I saw the crack behind his composure. The understanding that I wasn't asking for his permission anymore. That this wasn't a distraction or rebellion. This was real. And it terrified him. Because everything he built, this empire of order and legacy, it starts to tremble at the presence of something he cannot arrange, cannot predict, cannot control. Yeah. He asked if you knew what you were doing to me. I told him you're the only thing in this world that makes me feel alive. That when I'm with you, I'm not just wearing the crown, I'm worthy of it. That you see me without the title, without the armor, without the illusion. And he couldn't stand it. Not because he hates you, he doesn't even know you. He hates that I chose someone he did pick. Someone who wasn't born into velvet and diamonds. Someone who dares to be loved without their blessing. He said loving you would cost me everything. I said losing you already cost me more. We stood there in silence, two men born into different eras, different beliefs. He thinks love is weakness. I think pretending not to love is the real weakness. He wants me to marry someone who looks good beside a throne. I want someone who makes me forget the throne even exists. And I told him that. I said, you can deny her name. You can erase her photo from the palace wall. You can lock me in duty, but you can't make me forget the way she makes me feel. And he said nothing. But his silence was louder than any punishment. Why father asked about you today. Now with curiosity. With warning. He sees you as a threat because you changed me. Because I now have something he never did. The courage to choose love over legacy. He did say your name. He never does. He refers to you like you're a mistake, a smudge on the clean history of our bloodline. But I saw it in the way he tightened his grip on his cane, and the way his eyes lingered too long on mine. He was waiting for me to deny you. Waiting for me to say that it was over, that you were gone, that it was a face he'd outgrown. But I didn't. I did give him the comfort of that lie. I stood there, his son, his hair, and told him the truth. She's still here. And I don't want a life without her. The words hung in the air like thunder after lightning. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of what came next. He didn't shout. That's not his style. He does raise his voice. He lowers it, makes it heavy with disappointment, with centuries of royal pride. He said I was making a spectacle of myself, that a prince does place emotions above duty. He reminded me, as he always does, that my choices reflect the crown. And I reminded him quietly, firmly, that before I am a crown, I am a man. And this man loves her. Loves you. Not because you were chosen for me, but because fate in all its chaotic brilliance brought me to you, and I refused to treat that as anything less than divine. He looked at me like I'd betrayed him. But how do I explain to a king that I've never felt more loyal, more honorable, than when I'm with you? That loving you is not weakness, it's strength. It's clarity in a world built on pretense. You are not a rebellion. You are my truth. My anchor. The first breath I've taken that has been dictated by tradition or strategy. I told him that when I'm with you, I don't feel like I'm playing a role, I feel real. And that terrifies him, because real love, the kind that doesn't care for titles or bloodlines, is something he's never dared to have. He said I was risking the kingdom. I told him I'd risk the world. Because if the cost of keeping the crown is losing you, then let it fall. Let them call me foolish. Let history misrate me as a prince who lost everything for a girl. They won't know what I gained. They won't know that your voice has more power over my soul than any national anthem. That your hand in mine is worth more than all the gold buried in this land. That when I wake beside you, am no longer just the son of a king, I'm a man who finally knows what it means to live. You warned me, if I keep choosing you, I will lose my place. I will be removed from succession. Stripped of inheritance. They sound in silence. He delivered those words like a sentence heavy, final, royal. I smiled. Because he still doesn't understand, I don't love you despite what I might lose. I love you because you're the only thing I ever wanted that didn't come with expectations. You loved me when I was just me. Not the prince. Not the heir. Just the man who couldn't look away from you. My father asked about you today. And in that moment, I realized he could take everything from me. A crown. A name. A palace. But not you. Never you. Because loving you isn't something I do to defy him. It's something I do to finally be free. He said it quietly, over tea, as if he were asking about the weather. But behind the softness of his tone, there was a storm waiting to be unleashed. He asked, is she still around? No name. No arm. Just that a question laced with disdain, like he was trying to bury your existence under the weight of formality. And I looked up at him, calmly, unshaken, and said, yes. She is. And she always will be. That was the moment I saw the crack in the armor of a man who built empires, conquered enemies, survived betrayals, but now stood powerless in the face of something he could rule, my love for you. He tried to mask his fury behind a smile, but I've known him too long. I could feel it. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. He set his cup down with practiced grace, but his fingers trembled slightly, a rare tell in a man who has never allowed himself to be moved. He asked me why I would endanger everything we've worked for. Why I would let a woman with no royal blood, no political value, no pedigree, come this close to the throne. I did flinch. I told him, because she's not standing near the throne. She's standing near me. And I am not just your son. I am hers too, in every way that matters. You should have seen his face. It was as if I had spoken a language he never learned, one that had nothing to do with power or duty, and everything to do with choice, with soul, with devotion. He doesn't understand what you've done to me, not in a destructive way, but in the most beautiful, undeniable transformation. Before you, I lived by rules. I walked lines painted by men who died centuries ago. I gave speeches written by others. I wore suits stitched by tradition, not comfort. But then you came. And suddenly, I wasn't a prince walking through gold-plated halls. I was just a man who knew what it felt like to be seen. Heard. Loved. He asked if I'd give you up for the kingdom. I didn't hesitate. He laughed, not with humor, but with bitterness, like I had failed some ancient test passed down through blood. He told me I was behaving like a commoner. That royalty doesn't have the luxury of loving with their heart. We love with our heads, with our alliances, with our sacrifices. I told him, then I choose to be a commoner, because I refuse to love with a calculation. You are not a transaction. You are not a tree. You are the only part of my life that doesn't feel forced, does feel hollow. And I won't trade that for a title that comes wrapped in chains. He reminded me what's at stake: the bloodline, the crown, the expectations of millions. I reminded him what I've already given up: my freedom, my childhood, my right to say no. And I told him I would not sacrifice you too. I will not place your love on the altar of royalty, and let it be slaughtered for the sake of legacy. If I am to rule, it will be with you by my side, not hidden, not silenced, not reshaped to fit their mold. I will not love you in secret like a sin. I will love you out loud, like the miracle you are. My father asked about you today. And I realized then, with full clarity, he doesn't fear losing his son. He fears losing control of him. But he already has. Because the moment I chose you, I chose my own soul. And I will never give it back.